And they might have a fine regular season next year, Larry, and no one's going to give a shit. Because if you do anything other than bet on them to get to a big moment and blow it, that might be an ill-advised way to go about it, because Kyle is just, history tends to repeat itself. And it's a devastating loss. I believe it is among, without a doubt, this is not an exaggeration, that might be the most devastating loss in the history of this franchise. Is that hyperbole? Am I getting too over my skis? Have you got another one? Okay.
I mean, the 90 fumble, that team was a total dynasty, and they fumbled in the NFC Championship game. And
right, but that's the NFC Championship game. That's not the Super Bowl. So what's the worst loss in a Super Bowl? I think that.
I mean, losing to the Ravens, you had 1st and goal on the 5 with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the game, and you lost to a old Ravens team that was huffing, and puffing, and they just were out of gas at that point. That was, to me, a little worse than this, but this was bad. This was bad. I mean, this one was there for the taking. Very frustrating game, all the way through. I mean, look at the box score. The box score says it all. I mean, it's like they also just got to this moment, and their star cast kind of eroded right before their eyes. They lost Greenlaw. Debo clearly wasn't 100%. Kittle was a non-factor as a receiver, just a factor in the run game. I thought that they didn't run it enough, even though, McCaffrey got 22 carries. He only averaged 3.6 a carry, but, 38 passes, 22 runs, or 31, I guess it was 31 total runs, but 22 to McCaffrey. That's, I wanted to see more of that.
Yeah. Again, you look at the box score, and it's easy to say, well, they did run it enough. They were balanced. But the truth is, as you were watching in real time, not running enough to me is the defining feature of how the 49ers lost this game. And I do think it's the worst loss in the history of the franchise. I mean, remember, the Ravens were way up on a Super Bowl that the Niners almost came back in. They were in control of this game early on, and they had several chances to put their opponent in a perilous place, and they took none of them. And the weakness of the special teams, even though, look, it's ironic that Moody drills 50-yarders in this game and misses the point after touchdown. I mean, that is a devastating moment that everyone feared might rear its head. And for a minute there, when he made such a long field goal for the first score of the game, it looked like you didn't really need to worry about that. But then that came back to haunt you. And this is awful. This is awful. And this is the kind of loss that makes players who used to believe in their coach believe in their coach less. And it is not, I think, coincidence that Eric Armstead, who never talks out of turn, or Kyle Juszczyk, who never talks out of turn, are the two guys going on record saying that son of a bitch never prepared us for this moment. We didn't know about the new overtime rules until Bill Vinovich was reading it on the Jumbotron in Allegiant Stadium.
Well, I mean, but he's a defensive player. I mean, yeah, I would imagine he's got to blame Wilkes first, right?
Well, no. So why do you send out a defensive player then to make that coin toss? If the defensive side of the ball doesn't know what the rules are, why are you sending Fred Warner out to call heads or tails?
Well, it's clear they played it like a regular season game. I mean, in a regular season game, you would take the ball. So, because if you score a touchdown,
right, but that's the thing. It's clear that they didn't know the rules, is my point. They didn't understand the situation that they were in, and that is all head coach. That is unforgivable. This is why Andy Reid is talking about it in training camp, because he's a champion, and this is why Kyle didn't know what was going on, because he is a massive game loser.
Well, there's no getting around it today. I mean, today he's got to wear it. He's absolutely got to wear it. But I mean, there were other factors here. Whoever picked the defensive lineman named Solomon Thomas, that has led them down this whole road where they've missed on defensive linemen, and they keep drafting defensive linemen. And guess what happens? You've got a bunch of highly rated defensive linemen that can't play because you're not picking the right guys. And then you got an offensive line that's been neglected because you haven't drafted anybody. So now you're leaning on a 5th round pick who's a good story, but you're going to make him, a bad story because you're going to start him at right tackle all year long. And they got bad offensive line play in this game. They got away from the run. That was on Kyle. To me, that Debo and Kittle didn't touch the ball enough. Ultimately, that's on Kyle.
Have you watched enough of the All-22 yet to see what really happened there? I mean, those obviously, Kansas City's secondary was sticky all game long, and the pressure was good enough to make Brock get to, he had time to get to a third read, maybe just a handful of times in an entire game before he started running for his life. But Debo was terrible in this game. And I don't want to hear shit about that injury that he occurred in the game, because he came back in and he actually played better after it looked like he pulled his hamstring than he did. The Dre Greenlaw thing is just as unfortunate a you got to be kidding me injury. I mean, it's almost like the team's cursed in the Super Bowl now. The team that was a perfect 5-0 is now a devastating 0-3 in 3 Super Bowls in a row. Kyle being the architect of the last 2 of them is just, it's just not good, man. And again, you and I aren't excuse makers. You and I are the 2 guys who have said Kyle might be better at this than his Super Bowl record indicates. I have lost faith in his ability to win a big one. There's a big difference between I'm a really good strategist and I'm a coach who knows how to close out the biggest game of the year. And I don't know if Kyle is that guy. I just don't. I believe he's a smart football man. I believe his players respect him. And I'm going to have to win. I'm going to have to watch him win a Super Bowl before I believe he's going to do it. He feels like he's going to need a change of scenery to win a Super Bowl. How many times can he walk into that locker room? How many times can that locker room honestly say, like, well, now we know what we need to do. Now we're really motivated to get up and get out and win the next one. I mean, this is a staggering amount of not closing it out, either in NFC title games or Super Bowls. They have been the second best team in football during the Kansas City Chiefs era, and they are a distant second to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, no question. I mean, now on the other hand, they've appeared in 7 conference championship games over the last 14 years. So the organization has found a way to contend, but they haven't found a way to climb to the top of the mountain and win this game.
All right.
And, yesterday was very, very frustrating from a lot of standpoints. You wonder if Shanahan needs some help. He's wearing multiple hats. He's the head coach and he's the offensive coordinator. Maybe he can't be both. Maybe he's got to be one or the other. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe the issue is they just ultimately everything that you do on offense starts with, can you protect? Can you block it? And they're struggling to come up with an offensive line that can block. So, I mean, no doubt in my mind that they're pretty good on the left side and they're pretty ordinary at center, right guard, and right tackle. So
let me ask you a question before
I think they really could use this. Was going to be an off season where they were going to have to, upgrade the offensive line. Now they need to upgrade the offensive line and the defensive line. And the question is, can they do that fast enough to get back into this game again and get another shot at it? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
I seriously hope that their Super Bowl window has not closed. You don't get to keep it open as long as you want. You don't get to be like, well, we're really good and we'll figure it out eventually. That's just not how this league works. You're an injury away from everything going wrong at all times. And this was the most set up to finally get it done football team Kyle might ever have in his entire life. And it didn't happen. And it's thoroughly devastating. There's no way to pretend that what we saw wasn't a direct result of a coach just not knowing how to win when it matters most. And not running the ball enough in big games has become a defining feature of Kyle Shanahan's coaching strategy in big games. And I just don't know why, for a guy who is so committed to the run, overly committed to the run, how you get to the Super Bowl and think, yeah, now's the time to find some balance. I don't understand it.